A good top roll is while your back pressure and pronation surge through your opponent's hand and wrist. You must simultaneously be able to cup and contain their own back pressure and pronation, denying possible defenses and counterattacks. That way your wrist is able to follow along with your back pressure and pronation to eventually pinning your opponent. If you don't have side pressure like Michael Todd doesn't have, you can twist your body and to prol using your brachioradialis, his offensive king's move. Devon to prols like this too. Watch Michael do it against Devon in 2011 in the first round. He goes completely under the table to get the brachioradialis working instead of the chest and shoulder. You can win with side pressure strength even with a flopped wrist, but if your pronator gets turned completely and your palm faces up to the ceiling, all the side pressure in the world won't help cause you won't get access to it. And pronation happens because the wrist and elbow joints work together. So, side pressure is useless if you don't have a baseline of pronation to provide access to it. And if a vector is fundamentally dependent on another for its effectiveness, it very well can't be the most important one. Pronation is the key to defense. What I meant to say was, if we put 0 on pronation after the go, we'd get flash pin palm up, or even over-supinated. But if we put 0 on cup, we still have a chance to fight. The thing that failed on Devon, which caused everything else to be exposed, was his rise. At the time, Devon's PR was just over 80 pounds. I think 82.5 was his PR before the Levan match. Now he's topping 100 pounds. And let's clarify something. The true expression of the riser involves some pronation through the top knuckle. This is what failed on Devon and left his hand completely underneath Levan. He still managed to get a soft stop, but the anchor to his king's move was busted. This actually failed against Dave in 2019 as well, but due to style, Devon was able to gut out the ugly win. This is the real reason Hermes succeeded in creating hard stops against Levan. His back pressure is insane, but it wouldn't have meant anything if he couldn't maintain pressure through his knuckles despite having his wrist dumped by Levan's fingers. Devon does attack the hand better, especially in the straps. I don't know if the riser gains Devon made will be enough, but that is what he needs more of than anything to stop Levan. Hermes put the brakes on Levan with massive back pressure. He was setting up to pull from a purely defensive position, and you can see that Devon, as the first round goes off, he's fully anticipating dropping into a king's move. Since then, he's been meeting opponents in the center line more often. Maybe his only shot is a king's move with Levan. Will be interesting to see. It's not about weight. Devon has faced heavier opponents multiple times and won. It's about strength gap. Strength gap between those two when they are healthy is just too much. With healthy Levan, it's not about who can pin him. It's about who can hold him off the longest before he pins you. Gennady has been seen to be able to wrist curl 95 kilos for 3 reps in his training videos leading up to Larratt. But still, his wrist gets taken easily by Larratt and everyone else he versus. Albeit his wrist curl reps weren't as clean as Levan, they were still extremely impressive. You need a strong cup to resist or shut down the opponent's pronation, and strong pronation to resist or shut down the opponent's cup. Finger containment is part of the cup. If you lose that, you will lose your wrist flexion as well. Devon had no choice but to lose his wrist with Levan anyway, but giving the wrist to try to emphasize height and placing the rising knuckle as far away from your opponent's fingers as possible maximizes the impact of your pronation. Kicking back your wrist a bit in exchange for more pronation makes your opponent farther away from getting around your hand, and they waste more energy holding on to you while you're hitting hard outside and trying to get around and over. In terms of Levan, I would also like to point out his hand and wrist and overall frame being so freakishly huge and thick in the ones place. to have the capacity to be that freakishly strong. Levan's uncomfortably thick hand structure, coupled with his wrist strength. He completely swallowed the hand of Hermes. He had his own hand containment, cupping compromised, 'cause he had placed most, if not all, of his power trying to crack Levan's hand, which he wasn't successful in the first place. They can't crack Levan's hand with their thwart, and their cup ain't containing his immense back pressure through his equally immense hand size. Their hand just gets swallowed in terms of reach and containment, the strength gap. So Levan had access to a simple counterattack with his own posting to prole. If you have a bad cup and bad finger containment, rising can be one of your most important tools to prevent being rolled. He had higher 1-rep maxes leading up to Devon. He did 100 kilos wrist curls before Devon, but only 90 kilos before Hermes. He definitely weighed more against Hermes, and his endurance probably suffered because of it. People even pointed out his heavy breathing in videos before his Hermes match. Someone with a strong cup can completely eliminate your pronation, and depending on your pulling style, this can prevent you from accessing any of your power. Top rolling without cupping is a legit fighting style. A lot of arm wrestlers will forget their cup entirely to focus on their pronation. It's faster and smoother. You don't have to remember and complicate the movement with another motion. Cupping, it's easier to rise and gain the high ground. But it also has some cons. By not cupping, you allow the opponent more access to his pronation. If you get stopped midway, there are good chances your wrist will be compromised. Back pressure fights fingers, not cup, when in a neutral position. Pronation fights cup in a neutral position. The way Devon pulls now matches up much better against Levan than how he pulled Levan the first time. Keep in mind, prior to facing Levan last time, Devon's last win was against John, and he didn't look like top 5 material in that match. I'm sure Devon has a better plan now, and with nearly 20% gain on his rising. Devon, in 2022, the most recent win was getting knocked off center versus Berzeng. Devon, in 2024, most recent win, won position at the start against Georgie, and was still able to stay in a relatively decent position while Georgie surged. Devon's physique is legit, one of the most confusing things in arm wrestling. He looks actually skinny here, similar to how he did in the build-up to the Hermes match, and everyone was saying he had no shot. Sure, he has arm wrestling specific strengths and his muscle is distributed around a large and long frame, so he'll always look skinnier than some guys. But still.
Oh, so easy. Did you see that? That was pretty easy.